Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are delighted to bring you the second edition and the second episode of the Digital Debates under the banner of IET Digital Conversations. After a successful kickoff to the debate on shared mobility a week back, today we'll be debating on whether India's electric mobility story will accelerate or will it take a backseat. We had a lot of diverse views on the same, so we thought it would be best to have the experts battle it out today in the presence of all of you. So today's debate is curated by the IET and IET's Future of Mobility and Transport panel. We are honored to have these set of distinguished speakers from diverse areas of mobility services to share their views with us today. I'm your host, Suman Bhaumik, and I lead the events for IET in India. Before we begin this session today, I would like to take 2 minutes to show you what the world of IET India has to offer, and I urge you to become a member. You can become a member by sending us an email on indiamembership@theIT.in. I'll just put the same on the chat window for you to refer. And give me a minute while I share my screen with you so that I can show you. So this is what the world of IT looks like. We have knowledge services, membership, community. You see the code. You can scan the code to become a member. You can also send us an email, like I said, at indiamembership@theIT.in. I am sure you'll find this session highly insightful and interactive. Hence, we have also kept ample time for question and answers. So, without any further ado and delay, kindly allow me to introduce our moderator for this session, Mr. Mustafa Wajid. He is the chair of the steering committee of IET India's Future of Mobility and Transport Focus, and he's also the MD and the CEO of Mayor Group. Over to you, Mustafa sir.
Thank you, Suman. Let me begin by first welcoming everybody who has registered and who is now listening to this digital debate. I hope all of you are safe and your families are safe, and I pray that everybody comes out of this situation sooner than later. Let me now introduce the panel, starting with the lady, Ms. Hemlata Annamalai. She is a very special person because much before everybody thought about electric mobility in India, she actually created a company in Coimbatore more than 10 years ago to produce electric vehicles. And I happen to know her and her husband also quite well. And many people actually questioned the sanity of Hema to do a electric mobility startup about 10 or 12 years ago. But I think she persisted, and she successfully negotiated many challenges and stayed above the water, because I know the difficult times that she passed through, particularly because she was ahead of her time. And eventually she did such a good job of managing and those challenges and running the company that a company like Greaves Cotton actually decided to pursue the acquisition of Ampere, and she had a very successful exit from Ampere, but also continues to advise them in many ways. So on this, I would, in one word, call her a pioneer. And welcome to this debate, Hema, and I'm sure your insights will be very useful in this.
Thank you.
Coming to the next person on this thing, we have Mr. Avik Chattopadhyay. Unfortunately, I am an electrical engineer, and Hema is also an engineer, and Atul is also an engineer. So to break the paradigm, we have Avik, who is an engineer on the debate. He is an economist. He's had a long stint in the automotive industry, including with global automotive majors like Volkswagen and Citroen and so on. And for the better part of 2 decades, he's been in the automobile industry. And he, as an economist and as an experienced person from the automotive industry, he has a slightly different view on this e-mobility and its ability to accelerate in the post-COVID or COVID-afflicted situation. He's also a MBA in business management, so he brings an all-rounded view of economics and business to this debate. He's not. I would not qualify him as a opposer of the motion, but he has a slightly different view, and I think that view is based on rational reality. I mean, rational understanding of current realities. So that is about a week, and we'll hope to hear from him some very interesting insights going forward. Finally, we have Atul. Atul Arya and I are, of course, good friends for many years. He's also been part of the electrical industry before he decided to migrate to the energy storage side of the industry. And he heads the energy systems at Panasonic, which is a very, very large global company and is the global leader in many products, and particularly in electric vehicle batteries. As everybody has heard, they work very closely with most of the global majors, and one of the big relationships that has been announced in the press for many years is their close relationship with none other than Tesla. So Atul, being an electrical engineer, understands both the power side of the problem and now the energy storage side of the problem. He also has a very deep visibility and understanding of the automotive side in electric mobility by virtue of his role at Panasonic. So obviously, Panasonic believes in electric mobility, and I don't think we will hear anything different from Atul, but we will hear some logical, interesting justifications for why that is so in India, particularly. We are now passing through a crisis. We hope that this will pass sooner than later. But going to the fundamentals of electric mobility, I would like to request everybody to remember what I personally like to describe as the three E's, the letter E. E for energy efficiency, E for environment, and E for economics. I think these are the three pillars on which the electric mobility platform or the revolution is being built. Just for everybody's clarification, if you do a calculation of how many kilowatt hours you need, if you let us say to in 1 kilowatt hour, how many kilometers will you get? The reality is that in a scooter, it could be somewhere in the region of 25 to 30 kilometers for 1 kilowatt hour. Now, 1 kilowatt hour, gentlemen, is 3.6 megajoules. Unfortunately, I'm an engineer, so I'm tempted to give these numbers. And if you go to a normal scooter, which is driven by petrol engines of the similar capacity, you're likely to get about 40, maybe 45, 50 kilometers per liter, depending on driving conditions. So, just for everybody's information, 1 liter of petrol consists of approximately something to round off. Is something in the region of around 12 megajoules, and therefore one can do the math. And energy efficiency wise, the electric mobility is about 4 to 6 times more efficient. The environment, I'm sure everybody has realized in the last 60 days, you are seeing cleaner skies. We are hearing birds which we had not heard of since at least my childhood. And people in North India are able to see the Himalayas from 300, 400 kilometers distance. I think that the cleanup of the environment that has happened, of course, there are many things that contribute to pollution, but emission from vehicles is definitely one of the important ones. I don't want to get into a debate about how much of pollution is generated by vehicles, but it is definitely among the top three. Now, we can argue about the rank within the three, but definitely among the top three. So, with this energy efficiency, the environment, and the economics, and on the economic side, we believe that while currently the electric vehicles are priced significantly higher than petrol and diesel vehicles, it is only a matter of time and before the volumes come up to levels where the economics kick in. And people realize that it's actually more saves you money in your purse when you run an electric vehicle. This is also influenced by some very innovative business models which are being looked at by various companies, including startups, where you could pay on a monthly basis, and so many different things that are coming up. I think electric mobility has a very important role to play, economically speaking, in the delivery of cargo and other services, because it actually consumes lesser energy. However, as I said, the economic situation has got ultra complicated because of the COVID. We are in the middle of a recession. Most people now only are discussing how much of a recession. Somebody says -5%, somebody says -7%, and so on. Let us hope it is as less as possible. But these are the background scenarios. So with this introduction and this sort of umbrella statement about the three E's and the economic situation, I would now request uh, as a traditional gesture, ladies go first, to Hemalata to start her sort of submission on what she feels about India's electric story during the COVID and post-COVID situation. Over to you, Hema.
Thank you, Mustafa Ji, for giving us an opportunity. Thank you, IET, for arranging this EV debate session. I think it's very timely. After my exiting my venture, this is the first EV debate I'm actually participating. I really took a break for a lot of time. And so thank you. It's nice to come back to technology and industry discussion. Electric vehicles is very dear to my heart for many, many reasons. I want to summarize the thought process to why EV will be the future for India in 2 or 3 bullet points. First is that, if you look at India, it's very interesting demography because 600 million people live in rural markets. Most of them are actually walking or going by bus or using cars or using shared transport. So if you look at it, for the 600 million people to be able to enhance their livelihood, to be able to have a affordable medium of transport, electric vehicles is the opportunity. You already mentioned about economics. If you take an electric scooter, for example, running cost is 1/10 of petrol. Capex is 30% cheaper than gasoline bikes. So it is a perfect combination in compared to gasoline bikes. Now, if you look at gasoline bikes, I personally feel, I could be wrong, but this is my thought process, is that if you look at gasoline vehicles and the technology in those vehicles largely grew by partnerships. If you look at what kind of partnerships, it was TVS Suzuki, it was Hero Honda, it was Escorts Yamaha, and then it was Kawasaki Bajaj, right? Everything grew by partnerships. For electric vehicles per se, I feel that it need not be that way. It can be developed from within India itself in a very significant way. For example, the key processing power or the drivers of electric vehicles, largely the software, the sensors, and even the data management or the connectivity can be completely localized, and it can be developed within India because we already have that expertise. It's not that something new where we have the expertise problem. But one issue is there in electric vehicles, the power electronics expertise, because it's very, very tough. When you want to design controllers and chargers, you need to have extremely capable power electronics expertise, which is one thing that India has to pick up. So the first aspect is that today, if India has to be a progressive nation, it has to innovate, it has to be technology based, and that technology development can be done within India. That's my first viewpoint. And the second viewpoint is that it's very, very compelling for EV because if you want to move the devices from AC to DC, then electric is going to be one of the key things. Because here itself in Coimbatore, I'm seeing some of the pumps are moving to DC, and some of the fans, are now moving to DC. So a lot of applications, devices are all moving to electric. That is one thing. And then even for pollution and cleaner environment, already electric is going to be irreversible moment. And then any renewable or sustainable initiative has to go electric. I mean, that's very given. Okay. Otherwise, for me, being a software engineer and being largely in IT, I wouldn't have come into a product area to actually develop a brand and develop an industry on its own if I did not see the merit. Yeah. So this is the second point. And the third point is that, which I wanted to say, in 2008, when we came here, it was largely electric mobility, right? It was very, very electric. Then it became electronic mobility to some extent because people slowly started to interface with sensors and all that. Now, if you go to the third revolution, it's more of digital mobility. Digital mobility. When you say digital mobility, it's multiple confluence of multiple technologies together: IoT, radar, ultrasonics, lasers, night vision, voice control. So multiple areas in one product. I still remember, in one of the conferences, well, there was a person who asked me a question. Well, it is very simple. You just buy the components, assemble, and then you have an electric bike. They were saying that, and I said that no, it is not that simple because you have motor as an electrical, you have the charger and the controller which is electronics, you have the battery which is chemical engineering, and you have actually the metal parts, metallurgy. So multiple technologies in one product. It looks way too simple, but it is not. If you have to get the energy efficiency, if you want to make it affordable, if you make it light engineered, I think electric vehicles has a fantastic innovation opportunity for India. So I think with that, I will want to only conclude my beginning by saying that in whatever angle that you look at, EV will be shared, connected, and it will be renewable. So if you look at the angle of environment, political, and economical policy initiatives across different countries, governments, technological developments, motors, semiconductors, and battery, and the investment in the industry. And the focused discussions like this one, electric vehicle is the future, and it will be there for the next about 30 years for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Hema. I would like to just mention, because I saw an announcement on the media today that the company Ola Electric has acquired a two-wheeler company in Europe, and
Yeah.
I'm surprised that mobility as a service company wants to become a vehicle manufacturing company also. These are strange times. People are going to do strange things to combat and improve competitiveness. So I know one person definitely who agrees with what Hema said, and that is the CEO of Ola Electric, because they just spent a very large sum of money to acquire that, and has given a statement that electric mobility is the future. So Hema, your statement and Bhavesh's statement actually coincides as of the media today.
Yeah.
So to make life a little more complicated now for everybody, let us now bring the different viewpoint into the discussion with Avik, and that will give Atul the chance to play the deliveries a little better after he's heard out what Avik has had to say. So over to you, Avik.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, IET, for giving me this opportunity to share my views here. And as Mr. Wajid very correctly said, I don't have a contrarian view. Okay, my view is what I call is pragmatic and rational, and I will keep my sharing of views here to the specific subject of will India's electric story accelerate due to COVID-19. I would keep my points to the specific subject, and I would say that though I myself also strongly believe in the future of electric mobility, but the current crisis that the country is going through, and I actually dare say will go through much, much more, okay, once we are over with the current anxiety with the pandemic, okay, will actually or unfortunately lead to a bit of a slackening of the pace of progress and advance that the electric mobility mission was making in India. And it's for some very, very simple reasons. First and foremost, okay, you need to prioritize what you need to do in the country and for the country over the next 12 to 18 months. Okay, and the first bit of priority is a massive amount of reconstruction that needs to happen, okay, of the economy of various sectors, core sectors of the economy, okay, to get the country back from what some people are now actually saying will be a negative rate of growth, at least over this financial year. So firstly, priorities for the country, priorities for the economy, priorities for the policymakers, okay, will obviously change. That's one. Number two, a lot of money which actually goes behind either funding the electric vehicle startups or the money that is allocated by OEMs into their own electric vehicle missions, and this is specific to the India context, okay, will take a back seat. Right? The existing OEMs will have to refocus on how to get back into the market, how to get their existing operations running, how to come back with the workforce properly engaged on the shop floor and in the showrooms. Again, it's all a question of priorities, and it is also a fact that you've been bleeding, and you've been bleeding anyway as an industry over the last 12 months. And now there's massive hemorrhage. So for you to come out of it, you again need to prioritize your budgets and you need to prioritize your focus. Thirdly, for the EV industry in India, okay, we have one big source for batteries, for raw materials, for battery electronics, and for the battery management systems. And that source itself has gone through a big hit. That's one. The alternate sources have actually gone through a bigger economic hit, and they will also have their own priorities to take care of. Also, this world is becoming, it's not a brave new world. It's right now a crazed new world. okay, which is looking at putting up boundaries and building walls and creating gates, not to allow people to come in or not to allow things to go out. And that would actually be, to the detriment of the progress of the EV mission in this country. Lastly, what I would say is, electric mobility is not the only future, or is not the only way. Mobility is a far more holistic subject. There'll be various solutions to better mobility. And as the electric vehicle industry, it needs to work with the larger industry. So it's about time the SMEV actually lobbies and becomes a part of the larger group, which is SIAM, because then you'll actually be able to go ahead and push your case before the policymakers much, much better. Okay, you'll have a much stronger power to negotiate, because at the end of the day, you must realize, okay, it is not an us or them situation, right? Development has to be holistic, development has to be inclusive. And therefore, for the electric mobility players as well as the conventional players at this point of time, you have common causes, you have common goals, right? You have common objectives, but also remember you have common enemies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Avik. On the economic side, maybe we can come back a little later. I think a little bit of focus has to also be looked at on the delivery side, e-commerce, service deliveries, etc. Because there is a possibility that the electric vehicle can actually become a more economic solution there, provided the availability of such electric vehicles is debottlenecked. Today, there is lack of approved vehicles available on the marketplace. Several people who run these fleets always ask me, I mean, everybody is talking about EVs, but where are the vehicles? I mean, where can we go and buy a ARAI approved electric vehicle for delivery, which can deliver up to 1 ton of payload? Now, these kind of questions are still not very clearly answerable. Anyway, we'll come back to that. The point that Avik has made, if I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the recession and the slowdown is causing a lot of economic stress. The investment priorities of the government are different after this COVID crisis. The survival issues of the automotive industry will take precedence over all other issues, keeping in mind the drop in sales that are likely to be expected. Hence, their ability to prioritize investment in electric vehicles may get deferred a little bit because they have bigger fires to worry about.
Exactly.
This is something that I understood from what thing. Having heard both Hema and Avik on this, I would now come to Atul, and I would also like Atul at this stage to share a little perspective, not just from the Indian context, but also from the global context, because Panasonic as a company is probably the most involved company in the electric vehicle game worldwide. And while we are today focused on an India-specific discussion, I'm sure it would be useful and educational for us to also know what is happening in other parts of the world, briefly, of course. And with that, over to you, Atul.
All right. Thanks, Mustafa, and thanks, Avik and Hema, to sort of set the tone of the discussion. I would not repeat what has been already said in terms of why electric mobility would be still growing, and this is a bigger opportunity, but maybe there may be a little bit of repetition. But coming to what Avik said, in terms of demand being suppressed or resources not being available, from the standpoint of COVID pandemic hitting our economy very badly. Um, well, my opinion is entirely different. It is 180-degree away from you, Avik. Simple reason is that we didn't expect, or we don't expect government to really create the industry, right? No governments can really create the industry. All they can do is they just can facilitate the industry by creating the right kind of policy environment, and sometimes the legal frameworks are required. I guess the last few week announcements by the government um, have really made lot many changes. Of touching many other sectors, but one of the champion sectors, or some of the champion sectors which government hasn't forgotten and they have actually mentioned in their official release as well, is renewable and batteries, primarily to understand the cleanliness of the overall and the sustainability of the environment. So I think this is extremely important to keep a watch on. um, as far as capital being not available, so if we all agree that capital is not going to be provided by the industry, by the government, then it is going to be the industry which is going to invest. Now, what Hema said, and I would take it from there, is that the traditional ice industry was not in investing enough, even when the situation was, or very good. The global environment was very good. They have been continuing with their programs of IC and trying to improve, etc., etc. It has taken someone else. If we take global examples, then it took Elon Musk to really create Tesla. If we take example of India, then it took Hema to create Ampere, and not really anybody else from the traditional industry. So I believe, and today, Mustafa mentioned an announcement, which is actually today, that Ola Electric has gone and bought over a company which manufactures electric two-wheelers, is actually sort of supporting that, what I'm saying. So there is no dearth of capital going to be impacting the electric mobility program, and the simple reason is that everybody is going to survive, put money for survival, make all the effort. So ICE companies, traditional companies, will put their efforts and money to survive in their business, but the new companies who have already taken positions, who have already gone ahead, made plans, are going to push hard as well. And there are economic reasons, there are efficiency reasons, there are a variety of other reasons. Coming to again another part of economic, um, I was reading some statistics a couple of days back. India's imports have really tanked, and the two major contributors in the month of April, especially in the last couple of months, the two major important contributors are oil and gold. Of course, gold has nothing to do with our debate today, but would we not like to sustain with this saving of foreign exchange, and not continue to import? So if the situation were to become normal, and we all want it to become normal, we all want economic activity to reach the pre-COVID level, would we want also our dollar expense from the country's exchequer to go to the pre-COVID level, even for the oil? I think this is a great opportunity. I think we should, if there is a time to accelerate, this is the time to accelerate. I know what I'm saying is not feasible in 1 quarter or 2 quarter or 3 quarter in which economy will recover, but can we not really make a dent, at least a sizable dent? And this is going to also generate surplus resource even from the government's side as well. Any penny saved is going to be spent on this. um, Third thing, we all talk about battery. Mustafa also wanted me to speak about battery. I think we all understand and agree battery is going to be a very, very critical piece of this overall game, and that's why government has made a mention of this being a champion sector which will get a lot of incentives and support from the government. Um, but let's also understand that batteries are not going to remain the way they are today. There is a lot more which is changing. So there is a debate which says lithium, cobalt, and many other aspects are there, but then there is also a lot of research which is happening. We are going to see solid state batteries, we are going to see lithium, metal air batteries, and whatnot. And all I know is that there are Indian startups as well taking a lead in this, not just global companies. And I think that's one more reason that this is the time. And if we believe that global companies are going to slow down their programs, this is again should be seen by Indian companies, by Indian startups, as an opportunity to take a lead. So, from my standpoint, coming back to India as a debate, I think this time should be to really press the pedal, and of course not to release the gas, because we are talking against IC, but really press the pedal on electric accelerator is what I would say.
Yeah, thank you for that, Atul. Just for everybody's, I'm sure everybody saw this on the news yesterday. The French president has announced a $10 billion equivalent stimulus package only for the French automobile industry, but with certain conditions that they should use it for more of electric and green energy vehicles, he calls it. I don't know what that means, but I think that there are countries also which have realized that they would like to press the pedal, as Atul said, and I think the French president actually pressed the pedal yesterday, so to speak. Uh, so, keeping in mind these factors, and now we have a whole lot of questions which I can see appearing on the thing. So I would like to hand this back to Suman temporarily. Suman, can you uh, take over and direct how these questions will be addressed in the next few minutes?
So we can start off by handling a few raise a hand requests. So if anybody wants to come on, share the screen with the speakers and ask them a question, we can take in a couple of raise a hand requests, and then we'll start, taking these questions that you guys have put in the questions window with the speakers and moderator. So do we have anybody who wants to, raise a hand and ask a question? Then you guys can do it.
Or alternatively, maybe we can start by dealing with one question
Yeah,
and we get time to react.
yeah.
Uh,
So
can I request
I think
Atul
the
to
first
take the
one.
first question, which is how to solve the problem of the rate of building charging stations or battery swapping infrastructure, and how long will it take to match the current ubiquity of petrol/diesel bunks? Atul, over to you.
Okay. I think first of all, let me uh, assure everyone that it's far more simpler than to set up a retail ubiquitous network, which essentially in India it is still continually developing. There are many areas where we don't have easy availability of petrol and diesel. It's far more simpler to do electric charging infrastructure. And the simple reason why I say so is that simple reason is that um, you need special infrastructure to store a fuel which is highly inflammable, the petrol and the diesel and all, whereas electricity is pretty much everywhere available. So if we talk of electric mobility, you have electricity right now everywhere. It's my headphones are powered by electricity. So we consume electricity everywhere to make rotis, to do iron our shirts and whatever. So everything is electric, so it's going to be far more easier. um, how long will it take? I think this has been asked as a question of chicken and egg many times, and I don't have a really answer to tell you a date or a month or a year. But all I can tell you is the ball has already started to roll. Quite some time back. Few years back, if you had asked what will be the number of electric two-wheelers in this country, nobody would have been able to answer. But today there are companies, for example, Ather, for example, Bajaj, TVS, Ampere, and few more who already have plans for this year and next year. So there would be a fairly strong number which people will be able to tell you, and which will be far more reliable as well. Similarly, these companies and their partner companies have already started to set up the charging infrastructure as well. So, in my sense, if we are, of course, COVID has really halted many things, and many plans have been destabilized. But assume that things become normal and we don't have COVID appearing in our conversation very frequently, then it's a matter of time, let's say 1 or 1.5 year, that you will see a sizable number of people. When I say number of people, I can already see, because e-commerce industry has already taken it up and they have already started to deploy. But I'm talking about users like you and me. A sizable number of users will be driving these vehicles, at least two-wheelers, and you will see a lot of charging infrastructure. And like I said, it's going to be fairly simple. People will be able to also charge at home in their offices, so it would not be such a big issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have one view actually. Mustafa ji, please allow me to value add here. I
Yeah.
think Atul's point is very valid. But if you look at the transportation landscape, roughly about 60% of the people commute only 40 kilometers a day. It is not that everybody is commuting 100 or 120 kilometers or 150 kilometers a day. It is not at all. If you look at rural and semi-urban markets, the travel pattern itself is very different. So when the travel pattern is about 30, 40 kilometers a day, it's very much, these affordable electric vehicles are very comfortable, because it is like, when we had mobile phone was like a car phone, very heavy. People used only in the cars. Today, as technology developed, it has got many applications, and people are now able to find. We did a survey and we found that in one of the villages, there is no toilet, but they know how to charge their mobile phones. Okay, so people will know how to find how to charge and all that. Number one, and then number two is that I also find that once people are able to practice the inconvenience of charging, because there is an inconvenience in electric vehicles, which is a charging, right? You have to literally go and put the plug point to charge, right? When people get used to that habitually, then everything can fall in place. It's more of a habitual change as well that will be required in the adoption of EVs.
Yeah, so that's a combination of some infrastructure issues and some habit changing issues. I agree with Hema. I personally use an electric scooter to do my commute in Bangalore. One of the first scooters that was made by the company Ather was given to me, and I find that I don't have to charge it every day. I charge it typically once in 3 days or something like that. This is the reality of thing, and I have a charger at home. In fact, it has made my life very comfortable, because I have forgotten what a petrol bunk is, as far as personally going and filling up things in a petrol bunk. So, having said that, we move to another set of questions by Mr.
I think
Kushal.
Avik wants to add something to this.
Yeah, I'm coming to you, Avik, because I want you to also deal with those two questions. Do you see the questions from Mr. Kushal Banerjee on your screen?
Yeah.
There are two questions.
How do we work?
One, I think, is a more of an automotive internal combustion engine background related question, which I think I would like you to take. And from an economy point of view,
I don't see them on my screen. So if you could just
yeah, I'll read it out.
sorry. Yes.
Question one from Banerjee Saab is: do we work on a phase-wise transformation, that is ICE to hybrid to battery electric vehicles, rather than going straight to battery electric vehicles? That is one question. The other question is: how will EVs stand from an economy and efficiency point of view when compared to hydrogen fuel cell vehicles? Avik, you've been part of the automotive industry. Hydrogen fuel cell has been around in the discussion for many years now. And so I'd like you to specifically answer those two questions. Over to you, Avik.
Okay. Firstly, I don't think the transformation or the evolution of mobility would happen in stages. Okay, they would happen in parallel, because there will be certain portions of mobility that ideally should go all electric right from the beginning. And I personally believe that public transport, okay, whether it be people transport or whether it be goods transport, should actually be looked at converting completely into electric as quickly as possible. Because you get the required numbers there, and number two, you actually also can control the infrastructure for charging. I'm basically talking about bus fleets. I'm talking about your e-commerce delivery fleets. I'm talking about even corporate fleets, which may be used within campuses and so on. I mean, ones which can on which you can have a larger level of control. They can be 100% electric. They need not go through a transition of from ICE to hybrid to electric. And for me, life is not this or that. For me, life is this and that and that and some more of something else. So for all the people who are tom-tomming and saying that the future of the world is all electric, I mean, all the best to all of you. Okay, because that is not how the world actually behaves, and that is not how human beings behave, right? Any human being who has actually been forced down with only one way to live life, one way to lead life, has always objected and protested. And also, what happens is, when you get into a monopolistic phase, the way the ICE industry has become, you actually start taking your customer for granted. And you become monopolistic, you start creating cartels, you then start overcharging. And Atul was talking about the industry being self-sufficient. Absolutely, Atul. Why do you guys then actually want subsidies on electric vehicles? Why do you want the government to go ahead and help you guys? Just go ahead and tell, the uber conscious people living on Altamont Road that, you can definitely afford, a two-seater electric vehicle for 25 lakhs of rupees. Go ahead. While 400 million people in this country, still 400 million people in this country do not even use any mode of transport. They move by foot. Electric mobility is meant for them. You will get your efficiencies, you will actually contribute to the economy, and you will always, and you will definitely meet all the three E's that Mr. Wajid actually talked about. So firstly, the transformation will not be in stages, it will be parallel. Okay, and I mean, I'm not a great proponent of ICE engines. All I'm a proponent of is clean mobility, as green as possible, as sustainable as possible. Okay, I don't want the entire world to be moving on electric cars and electric two-wheelers while the electricity is being generated in coal plants. Sorry, I don't want that to happen. Give me cleaner solutions, give me greener solutions, give me solutions which actually help the skies remain almost as blue as they now, and actually help the birds come out as much as they're coming out now. So, one. The second one was about hydrogen fuel cells. At the end of the day, it's all about affordability. Okay, and parallel routes have been taken. So when China, some 30 odd years back, started this entire journey on lithium ion batteries, okay, there are other parts of the world which tried other solutions. Now, if at the end of the day your solutions are not economic, even if you be such an advanced economy as Germany or France, you will actually have to shelve that project and pick up projects which are actually for the greater good of greater people. So, if hydrogen fuel cells are extremely efficient in operation but extremely cost ineffective, they don't work at all.
Yeah, thank you, Avik. Yeah, to add to that, in the United States, I find that the hydrogen cell fuel cell vehicle released by Toyota, which is called the Mirai, which can be compared to a Tesla Model 3 in practical comfort terms, seating size, space, power, and so on, actually retails for about $55,000, whereas the Model 3 of Tesla retails at about $30,000, depending on which state you are talking about. So currently, the fuel cell vehicle, even in America, which is the most competitive automotive market in the world, is almost priced at about 65% higher than the battery electric vehicle. So this reinforces what Avik was trying to say. With this, I move to another question, which is a troublesome question. And thank you, Avik, for challenging engineers to provide a clean solution. Spoken like a true economist. Easier said than done. If he was an engineer, he'd realize what kind of problems we face. So having said that, the one troublesome issue which we encounter in the EV discussion ecosystem is, what do you do for disposal of batteries? Now, this is a very troublesome question, and I think, in all fairness, I would leave Atul to sort of face this delivery and play it properly. Over to you, Atul.
So frankly speaking, I think, Mustafa, engineers are designed to take troublesome questions and then simplify them and provide solutions. Of course, sometimes while finding solutions, we end up creating more problems. But
Quite often.
I think the question which you have raised is very pertinent and has been raised many times. But the good news is that there are already quite a few companies who have figured a way out of really taking these batteries back, and not just taking these batteries back and reprocessing and recycling them. Being able to also answer a very troublesome question, which maybe some people might ask, that India doesn't have lithium, cobalt, and all those sources, and how would you end up making batteries? So this is like the answer is in the urban mining. People have already set up facilities, and at this point of time, since electric vehicle batteries are still very small in number as far as our country is concerned, they are either importing or taking the cell phone batteries, the used spent cell phone batteries, and not just reprocessing or processing them in a way which is environmentally clean. At the same time, are creating resources in the form of reusable ingredients like lithium, cobalt, and many other precious metals. So I think this is a fantastic news. I know at least 3 companies in India who have set up small facilities and really waiting to scale it up.
Yeah, thank you, Atul. Just to add to that, Mr. Kulshresh, who has asked that question, uh, on the lead acid battery front, this is not a problem because more than 98% of the lead acid battery is already being efficiently recycled. This is a problem with some of the new chemistries or a challenge which, as you have now heard from Atul, people are finding solutions. One of the solutions is also to have a second life of this battery in energy storage applications in the power sector, particularly with renewable energy, solar production prices, solar energy production costs coming down to below 2.5 rupees a unit. To use the second life of automotive batteries is being considered as a viable solution for converting energy from the non-renewable type to the renewable type because of the intermittency of the renewable energy. So, having said that, we'll now move to the next question, and I'd like Hema.
Also, we have Kushal Banerjee who has raised a hand. So
Yeah,
if you allow, I'll just bring him in for a couple of minutes.
yeah, please.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Banerjee, we have you.
yeah, I'm audible now.
Yeah, we are
Yes,
still
you are.
getting used to these kind of conferences. I missed the fact that you had raised your hand. So,
No issue. I was just getting a lot of inputs and very useful discussions. I was just thinking the purpose of EVs is right in the beginning also. You also talked about the blue skies, mountains, all those things. So basically, we are talking about EVs with perspective to, regarding to emissions, clean air, everything. So that if you talk about that, then EV is not the only solution. There are 100 other fuels, as Mr. Chattopadhyay is telling. There are other alternate fuels: hydrogen, bio CNG, HCNG, then LNG. Why would you talk about other alternatives? Why only EVs? Why would you talk about that if we are so much concerned about emissions?
yeah. Can I answer that or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mr. Avik actually mentioned that this is a bit of a mixed reality situation. Several technologies will coexist like they do currently. We already have CNG on the road, we have petrol, we have diesel, and so on. I think,
Exactly. I was just adding to what Mr. Chattopadhyay is telling. Yes, there cannot be this or that. There have to be very different alternatives.
yeah,
There
so I think we all agree.
CNG infrastructure is being put across the country, linking around more than so many districts, hundreds of districts. So
Yes,
this is as a fuel. That will be fuel. Then HCNG we are talking about. Hydrogen and CNG. That's a very huge, very good fuel. We're talking about bio CNGs. There's so many other fuels, LNG stations coming up by GAIL.
correct.
Why only EVs we are talking about?
No, can I respond to that, Mr. Banerjee?
For clean emission, only EV. That's not the only solution.
Yeah, so let me answer on behalf of the panel. The reality is that there will be several automotive technologies that will coexist in the Indian urban and rural situation. As we have seen in the FAME 2 program, which has been released by the government of India, the emphasis of electric vehicles in India is primarily on two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and buses. If you notice, the FAME subsidy is targeted only at these 3 segments or primarily at these 3 segments, and some small amount at about 1,000 crores that targeted at EV charging infrastructure. So even the government of India, along with all of us here, we are all clear, and I'm sure you agree with me, that the FAME 2 program is targeted at making electric vehicles more easily acceptable and adoptable in the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and the bus space. I think that is the journey that India wants to do. This is the journey that the government of India's policy is pushing. However, when it comes to passenger cars, the reality is that the price levels of the passenger cars, as we see them today in the electric vehicle, are way too expensive. If I go as a purchaser of a car today, I have to pay 2 to 3 times more than what
Still,
for a similar petrol engine car. So even with the BS6 implementation, so I think we are some distance away. So I think the coexistence and the mixed reality situation is an answer to that question.
no, I'm
Uh,
talking.
I'll just add a little bit more to you, sir. Mr. Banerjee, what Wajid sir talked about was, the technical aspect of, why, what it is, where it is today. At the end of the day, when you see the larger economic uh, developments in the world have happened due to lobbies. Okay, there was a point of time in the history of the automobile when it started off actually being electric. The oil lobby, led by Standard Oil and the various people, they actually destroyed the likes of an Edison and the Edison electric car and all the other electric car manufacturers in the early 1900s. Okay, so that was the oil lobby which fought against the electric cars. This is now the electric lobby which is fighting against the alternatives to electric. Let's be very clear about it. Okay, now Musk gets funded by the US government. There are billions and billions of dollars at stake. Okay, the French government is hugely bought into the electric mobility program, and I know this right from the late 1900s. Right? Therefore, let's be very clear. These are lobbies which are fighting against each other. If the Oil Coordination Committee can actually create a strong lobby for HCNG, go ahead and fight your own story out with the government. Right? The government always, you see, the other problem is, very frankly, the government is not really clear of what it wants. The government is extremely populist, right? And it picks up the the little flavors of the day or the flavors of the month and keeps making statements. So on the one hand, you have a statement like the country will become all electric by 2030. On the other hand, you have a statement like, we're going to put up ethanol plants and methanol plants and whatnot you have all over the country and so on. So as Atul very correctly said, do not depend on the government, right? If you are very clear about your own solution, if you think your solution is sustainable, if you think your solution is energy efficient and economically viable for this country, a country like ours, just go ahead, lobby hard, push it, ram it down the throat of the policymakers, and then see what happens.
Thank you, but I was only thinking for the heavier vehicles, hydrogen and LNG is a better option compared to EVs.
Yeah, I think so this is something that requires a little more discussion, not just from a economic,
thank you.
technical point of view. I'll be happy to connect with you offline, and we can take it up there, Mr. Banerjee.
Surely, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Banerjee.
Having said
Mustafa sir, there is a question for Hemlata ma'am.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked, and I'll just bring it in. While you spoke about the need for power electronics, there is also a need for machine design and integration. So what is your opinion on the machine design capabilities and integration work happening? This is asked by Mr. Narasimham, CEO of Quantum Powertrain.
See, I'm just telling you from an entrepreneurial experience. Okay, I don't want to give a technology gyan on this. I just want to give you practical insights of what I did in our company. I think that will help. See, an electric bike is a disruptive innovation. Has it disrupted petrol enough? Not. Is today electric vehicles 1% of gasoline bikes? It is not. Right? So when times are tough and when you are trying to move into a fully electric paradigm, it is better to actually do incremental innovation and then try to go gradually. Right? So that is what I learned from building Ampere brick by brick. I said that massive investments to do expensive machine drawing, machine tools, whatever is it, and all that doesn't help at all. If you look at it, I mean, as Atul pointed out, today the electric vehicles change. The change is all being done by new age entrepreneurs. It's not the traditional people who are actually doing it, right? So whilst power electronics is so paramount because it is basically how do you say? I mean, like Mustafa ji mentioned, 1 kilowatt hour can give 25 kilometers. So we'll have to focus on that part first because that's more paramount. The other part, machine tooling, light engineering, and all that is only an added accessory. Because today the critical mass is still not there. So I always believe that as long as your electric vehicle is a product, you will not be able to scale at all. As long as the product is a business, then only you can scale, right? Which means disruption in business model innovation, disruption in the way that your team executes, disruption in the way that organizational goal towards working towards the EV mission does all matters. So I still believe that all the other aspects of electric components is important, but I feel that 70% of the effort is going to be in power electronics, which is what we built a capable R&D at that point of time. And that helped, that strategy helped.
I think that answers Nasimam's question to this. There is one to Atul also. Atul, it's coming your way. We have Mr. Devasenapati, who is partner and consultant, Avantgarde Consultancy, asking, are we having enough mineral resources to replace all the existing IC vehicles and future demands by EVs? That is number one. Number two is, in that case, are few countries going to dominate those markets like OPEC or 12 oil-rich countries in the ICE?
Well, I think I partially answered that question while I was talking about the recycling opportunity, but I think that's not the end of it. Of course, first of all, there are many resources all over the world. Some of them have not even been discovered, right? So, when we started going for the fossil fuel, oil based mobility and other applications, the discovered sources were not so much as we have today, right? We keep continue to discover these resources in newer geographies. So, as far as India is concerned, we are yet not fully explored these kind of resources. And then, while I said also in future, it may not be dependent only on lithium or such things. The chemistries are changing. There is a solid state battery coming. There is a metal air batteries coming, which may not need all these lithiums and cobalts, or the proportions may go down. And then there is urban mining happening. There is also recycling of those happening. Important thing for us is to not really get bogged down by these challenges which we may face. Important thing is to see opportunity. One example I can give you is that Japan has a large steel industry and a large automobile industry. They don't have steel as a resource available there. What they have done is they have built their edge in terms of value addition. So they bring in the iron ore, convert it into one of the best steels, by applying themselves, and then not only export that steel, but by using that steel, they started to build fantastic automobiles. And today we all understand that how big they are if we were to talk about mobility or automobiles as such. So I think we should, if we try to put everything on the equation and get the answer always as a positive even before we started, I would probably say that no business venture would ever succeed.
Yeah. Thank you, Atul, for that.
Yeah, Suman, can you handle the next set of questions? We may need to extend time a little bit because there are several.
I think we have a lot of questions, but we are actually out of time, so we can take one last question. And I think there is somebody who is asking from Aether, Mr. Thiru, saying batteries are a large expense for EVs. What do you see as the developments in progress in the coming years to make batteries lower in cost, better in life, and easier to recycle?
Yeah. So I think this again is a connected piece of what I was just speaking. Of course, there has been a lot of changes in the chemistries, in the form factors. We had 18650 cells. There is 2170 cells, which are not just more energy dense, but also cheaper in terms of the cost of manufacturing. And continuously there is a research going on, there is a development going on. Scale also brings in a lot of economies. Everybody knows what happened when Gigafactory was set up in the US with Tesla, and the prices have really come down dramatically from there, from that standpoint. And solid state is a big bet. I think the whole industry is betting on that, though it is still some time away in terms of stability and in terms of various other factors. But it is going to dramatically change the energy densities, which will answer a lot of range anxiety questions, lots of cost questions, a lot of safety questions. So this is the way to go, and obviously it will also bring down the prices to a large extent. So I think there is no single answer today. If I were to draw a similarity, building a new chemistry or a new battery or a new cell is something similar to discovering a new drug. So we all want very badly a new drug for COVID, but we all also realize that it is going to take at least a year or a couple of years. So building a cell or a new chemistry is also something very similar. You need to really test it. You need to test it in the lab environment, go out, get field trials, get it perfect. You need to reiterate, and then eventually also be able to build a scale, which is again a very, very different thing. So you may have technologically very good, for example, hydrogen is technologically, we all talk about superiority today, but at the scale of manufacturing it still is not viable. So I think lots of time still is required, but even with the current batteries of lithium ion, there is a large amount of efficiency which has been brought in and will continue to incrementally improve over a period of time.
Thank you, Atul. I think Mustafa sir, we have wrapped this up. If you can just summarize this, and then we can close.
Yeah, just to sort of address, because there are still a lot of unanswered questions, I would request the IET team to tabulate those questions and
We will.
circulate them to all the speakers, so that they can at least draft some short answers, and those can be recirculated to all the people who have registered and participated today. Can you organize that for me?
Yes, definitely, we'll do that.
Okay. Now we will just wrap up this session. To begin with, I would like to thank all the participants who have been very patient, and also partially apologize to them because we haven't had enough time to handle all the questions. This is a very complex topic, and sometimes the answers become longer, not because we want to, but because the subject is like that. So having said that, apologies for not answering or dealing with all the questions because of a time constraint. I would also like to thank all my panel speakers here, starting with Hema, Atul, and Avik, for having sort of put things into very clear perspective. I think we had a very great combination of people. We have a pioneer, we have a large MNC experienced person, we have a economics guy who's asking all the tough questions, and engineers trying to fend them off. So therefore, I think we had a very interesting session here. I don't know whether we have answered the question. Will India's electric story accelerate due to COVID-19? I'm not inclined to answer yes or no. I come from a generation which is still inspired by Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao and our former Prime Minister, who always used to say that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So I think in some sectors where the economics will play out, with due regard to Avik, I think electric mobility will accelerate. That's the general impression that seems to be prevailing, and that can be in cases like e-commerce, fleets, and so on and so forth. In three-wheelers, it's already very clear that the e-rickshaw is an area where it has already accelerated, and I'm sure that it will accelerate even more going forward, because in a corona situation, the e-rickshaw is a psychologically more comfortable vehicle to travel in, because the air is circulating freely and you don't have so many challenges of sitting in a totally enclosed vehicle, etc., etc. So I think that partially it will accelerate due to COVID, but I think partially it will get slowed down also because of the economic factors and the fact that some of the automobile companies may delay some of their plans in coming out with electric vehicles, and therefore the amount of electric vehicles sold in the Indian market in 2021, which is the COVID year now we can call, will probably be lower than what we were anticipating before COVID. I think that this is the mixed reality that we are facing. I think that there is a very important message in what the panelists and particularly Atul said. I think the brave people have decided to invest in electric mobility. Today's announcement by Ola Electric also justifies that. You know, there is an old saying that there is very small difference between bravery and foolishness. And bravery assumes certain degree of knowledge. Foolishness assumes certain degree of faith. Now, I don't know which one is right or wrong, but I think that the reality is that people are putting a lot of money behind electric mobility. Whether they are brave or foolish, time will tell. But I think it's very important from an Indian context to remember what Atul said, that we have to reduce our foreign exchange expenditure on oil. I think we as a country need to take that far more seriously than we have done in the past. We have now shown that it can be done. Okay, that maybe we were sitting all at home, but we don't have to go back to that level, like Atul rightly pointed out. And that's a point on which I think Avi cannot but agree. as an economist. I think Hema is committed to that for more than a decade. So with that kind of overall kind of summary, I thank everybody for participating in this. And maybe we should have a repeat session of this in maybe a few months down the line to revisit some of the things that we have said today. It will be interesting to hear the recording of what has happened
That's a
today
good point.
and see who was brave, who was foolish, who was wrong, or who was right.
And who was in between?
I think our audience has also, answered to the poll that we asked whether electric story would accelerate. 87% feel it would, 13% feel that it might take a backseat. I think it was wonderful, to have all of you here. This is the best we could come close to a debate and having these kind of views.
Yeah,
And,
but there's a caveat on that. Avik will say that too many of our participants are engineers. So not enough.
That's perfectly okay. As long as you make the three-wheeler slightly safer, I'm all for it. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Avik, it was
Thank you
like
very
you mentioned, maybe it's time to bring the nano back in an electric format.
It is absolutely. This is the time to bring the nano back. I mean, Tata Motors made a blunder by pulling it out.
Thank you so much, everyone. I have already put the upcoming Friday's session that we have this Friday on the 29th. It's on reimagining and resetting your workspaces for the future, because the world around us for work has changed and evolved drastically. Some have long-term, short-term, and mid-term effects. So we'll unfold a great session this Friday from 2 to 3:30 p.m. India time. Look forward to having all of you there, and we'll continue to have such sessions, interesting sessions on mobility also, like Mustafa sir said, and keep in touch. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and please keep watching us.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.